Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Powerful Nothing, a Magic the Gathering podcast. I'm your host, Dan, better known on the internet as Too Sweet MTG. Today, we're not talking about Cube. Today, we're talking about our recent trip to Magiccon Amsterdam. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, James. How's it going, dude?
Yo, it's going pretty good. I've partially recovered from Amsterdam and feeling like a human being again.
Yeah, me too, but just going back to work. Oh, dreadful. I want more holidays, more nice sunny days in Europe. But today, we are joined by a very special guest. Coming all the way from upstairs is one half the Legacy Gambit. We're joined by the wonderful Sahar Mirhadi. Wifey, how's it going? How are you doing?
Hello, boys. I'm here to talk to you about Magic the Gathering. I've played a lot of Magic this weekend. I saw a lot of Magic this weekend. I'm excited to talk about the con because it was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, 100%, because today we're going to be talking about our recent trip to Magiccon Amsterdam. And we've asked Sahar to join us just to give us a more rounded view of the con, because we all basically had very different experiences. Sahar was on site for the full 3 days. I think you did literally everything you could do at the con. I did 2 days, and James just did the Sunday. So we're not going to do this chronologically, but we're going to try and cover everything that we can. But before we get into our experiences, we have a bit of news. A lot of this does tie into Magiccon Amsterdam.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get on to the more cheerful news of the Pro Tour, there was some really sad news actually that came out of this weekend that we felt like it was important to mention. So before the top 8 was announced on Saturday, William Jensen gave an announcement that Kai Buda, all-time Magic great, of course, has been battling with cancer for the last 2 years, and unfortunately that has recently taken a turn for the worse. In his honor, the Player of the Year trophy has been renamed the Kai Buda Player of the Year for 2024. It's a very nice touch. Kai also spoke himself, said that so when he's able to, he wants to keep playing Magic, keep coming to some tournaments. Listen, you don't need me to tell you about what a great player Kai Buda is. Incredible career within Magic. I think 5 individual Pro Tour titles, 2 team Pro Tour titles, significantly more than any other player in the history of game. 7 Grand Prix titles, and also just had a very long career. And throughout that, you don't hear anyone with a bad word to say about him, which I think really speaks to the man he is, as well as being a great Magic player.
Kai is one of the GOATs. Funny anecdote is that because Kai doesn't lose on Sundays, Kai won the PTQ on Sunday. And to me, that is like the touching tribute. I had a lot of players who I knew personally be very, very emotional about that process. Friend of the podcast, Ika Baronin, basically has said many times that Kai is the reason why Andreas does work as hard as he does. And I think it's testament that like this is a good honor for 100%, but it was definitely sad to hear. But I keep hope that he will just keep playing Magic until he's able to. But yeah, cheers to a good one.
Yeah, for sure. I think people who I started playing Magic sort of 10-ish years ago, so sort of after Kai's absolute peak where he was winning everything, but he was still like just such a legend of the game. I don't think you could be around Magic very much and not hear the name Kai Buda a lot.
And it was interesting actually, because one thing I noticed this weekend, and it now makes more sense, is I saw like John Finkel and Bensek and a few like the OG like pros about. And now that makes sense why, because they want to spend time with Kai. But yeah, a lot of friends very, very upset, of course. But I think a lot of players also now just want to celebrate him and like make sure that he just keeps continuing what he does. And you know, I feel like he's pretty private in terms of himself. So this being like a very fitting honor is 100% the way to go. So shout out to Wizard for doing that. But watching Huey's announcement, understandably very upset, getting quite emotional, kind of really hit home of like, oh, this is actually happening now. Because I actually saw the video and I was like, oh, that's actually really upsetting. And seeing friends who are undoubtedly very, very emotional about that experience is not something to frown on, but I feel like everyone's just going to celebrate him moving forward. And he won the PTQ because that's what Kai does.
Of course, Kai does not lose on Sundays.
Kai does not lose on Sundays. This is a thing, and he proved it, and I find that fucking awesome. Kai does not lose on Sundays.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Oh, something else that happened on Sunday was that Simon Nielsen took down the Pro Tour.
Hell yeah.
In a top 8 that has a lot of similar decks. Just touching on Simon Nielsen first. Congratulations on winning the Pro Tour. Always a fantastic achievement. So he won it with Bant Nadu in a final match, also against Bant Nadu, made up of a semi-final of 3 Bant Nadus and a 4-color Nadu deck. So was this Nadu's Pro Tour? I'll throw it out to you both first.
150%. This was the Pro Tour of Nadu. Also, shout out Simon Nielsen. Simon Nielsen was Player of the Year last year. Won a bunch of Pro Tour. Had a bunch of Pro Tour top 8s, and him getting his win finally is like such an amazing thing to see. But I am not surprised that Nadu did so well. It was 20% of the field. I think it had like a 58% conversion rate to day 2, which is like actually insane. And like just kept winning. It just like kept winning. And for me, that is both good and bad, question mark. Like it's not Hogak numbers, but it definitely felt like Hogak summer many, many moons ago for people who were playing Modern back then.
I mean, it was the most played deck. I don't think anyone was surprised that it was the most played deck, which means that all the other decks should have been and probably were gunning to beat Nadu, and they pretty emphatically failed. If you look at the matchup results, so they publish the win-loss ratio of each deck, of each major archetype versus each other major archetype. Nadu only has one that's below 50%. That's Esper Reanimator, where it wins 46% of the time. That's over a very small sample size, just 28 matches. Everything else is above 50%, which basically means it doesn't have bad matchups amongst the established decks. That's kind of a problem going forwards.
That is a problem.
Yeah, the fact that people are running 4 Soul Spike, which I really had to look up.
And Harsh Mentor, if you're playing red. That to me is tantamount. The other thing is as well, is the Ruby Storm deck, which was like the other breakout deck from MH3, got absolutely trounced because
it was horrible. Yeah, really bad.
It was horrible. It was like 33% conversion because you can beat up on Storm. Like that's the easy part. You can put in some sideboard cut. Not Dranith Magistrate. Like that was the Nadu deck, but you can put in like Trinispheres and like your X thing can't do something. But yeah, like Storm got absolutely annihilated.
I think people just wanted to play Storm, if I'm honest with you. There's a few old heads who are like, Storm, you say?
I mean, like the Jesco Control. I mean, again, shout out to Javier Dominguez for playing Jesco Control. I think that deck looks really sweet. I feel like this is the first time in a long time that Jeskai actually looks like a viable strategy. With like Wrath of the Skies, Galvanic Discharges, and then you have Flage to basically win the game. The Mono Black Necro deck, I think that was I feel like that's also a Channel Fireball deck. Like they also decided to play Necro. But it is unsurprising that Nadu did so well. Everyone I spoke to, across multiple teams, not just friends on multiple teams, well, the Council, Handshake, Channel Fireball, I got the feeling that Nadu was the best thing to be doing, and everyone just played Nadu and tried to figure out how to play it and win with it. And I had a couple of friends who are pros who were like, it wins consistently on turn 3. And then the Storm deck also wins consistently on turn 3. And it's like that. If I want that, I have eternal formats for that thing. Whereas Modern should be a little bit more interactive. It should be a bit more it should kind of like be that interactive format. And I know people moaned about the old Modern format where it was just like looking at, there's not a single old Modern deck from like 3 months ago in sight in this Pro Tour. Like yes, MH3 shook it up, but whether it shook it up for the best is to be determined.
It's always the thing of after these sets come out, there's just so much changes. People are like I don't think we're even at the best. Or there will still be decks and stuff people are finding from this format, and there's probably still adjustments people will be making to the Nadu deck. If we think the Nadu deck is going to be around that much longer, I mean, I wish I'd taken my copies of Shuko to trade. That probably would have been a bit of a smart move beforehand. But do we think that kind of is at the point where Nadu needs a emergency ban, or can the format wait a couple of months till the next ban BNR announcement?
I think for me it's looking pretty problematic. Like, I think it can kill on turn 3, and that is the time where people say Modern's a turn 4 format. I think that's gone. That's fine. But the thing is, the other decks that can win on turn 3, like the Ralstorm deck, for example, you can bury them if you have the right pieces of interaction, to stop them. You have the right hate for Ralstorm, it will go into a corner and do nothing for 4 turns until you kill it. If you Soul Spike their Nadu, or whatever now piece of hate you have for it, they'll just laugh at you and play another Nadu. They'll chord for another Nadu. They have a lot of ways to find all of their pieces. And even if they're not, like, going off and killing you for Nadu, they have so many cards that you're not playing a value game against them once they have put a Nadu and a Shuko into play. Like, even if they don't have enough that the game literally ends on that turn, unless you're like some combo deck as well that's killing them very quickly, the game is essentially over because they just have too much material.
Well, it's the same with like the Bristly Bill Spring Hard Nantuko. Like, just take Nadu out the equation for half a second. Just Bristly Bill, Bristly Bill, Spring Hard Nantuko. Like once the engine gets going, that's kind of it. Like, you don't even need Fastest Oracle. I don't think this version by Simon Issa was even running the Fastest Oracle version. It was just make a large, like, make a bunch of tokens and turn them sideways.
I think at some point you endurance yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. You endurance yourself
and loop through your whole deck again.
Someone was trying to explain that to me while we were in a bar in Amsterdam, and it was not even at the best of times. That's not going in and settling.
I mean, were you trying to watch a football at the same time?
I wish I wasn't, James. I wish I hadn't.
Yeah. So for me, like, I'm glad. Okay, am I glad there is a creature combo deck in Modern? Yes. Do I want it to be this strong? No. Like, don't get me wrong, James. You're a fan of a creature combo deck, Kabibi. Okay.
Oh, I've cast far too many Devoted Druids in my time.
Exactly. Like, this looks at Devoted Druid combo and is like, hold my beer. And I think it's fine. Like, honestly, like in older formats, like Nadu's fine. Like, it's a whole different story. The problem is what you ban. I don't think you ban Shuko. Shuko is like, they have
that's
different ways.
Feel bad. Yeah.
Well, also, I don't think it's the problem. I don't think that's the problem. I think it is just Nadu. If you're going to ban it, you ban Nadu and you just cut the deck before it matters. Same with Hogak. They banned they actually banned Bridge from Below first.
Banning Shuko feels like banning the bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you've got to ban the problem, and the problem is Nadu.
You've got to nip it in the bud. I saw Carmen Complarens and JD Complarens around the Pro Tour area. They were like observing, and a couple of people, like, I spoke, like, not to them directly, but people I spoke to separately, they were like, do you think they tested this? Like, do you think they put these two, like, they put Nadu and this deck together? Like, were they thinking that this is going to be a deck? Or was it just a case of this is just a value engine kind of card? Because it is a value engine on the surface.
But it's kind of wild not to, right? Like,
yeah.
And the first time I saw that card, I was like, oh, you could just do a Scryfall search for 0 equip cost equipment,
Yeah,
I think one that came to my mind was Lightning Greaves, which would still be pretty good. Like,
well, even like Outrider on core is basically Nomads on core, but for modern times, like, there's a bunch of things you can do. Horde, like, if the other thing you can do, it could be like Horde, but I don't want to ban Cold Calling. I think
doesn't that ruin the other kind of creature like
exactly.
Yawgmoth, the other
you
creature
basically cut Yawgmoth from under its. You cut Yawgmoth underneath its shell.
And the thing is, what if you ban Chord and it's not good enough? Like, they just play Finale instead, and then you have to go back and ban it. I think the spot I'm at is like, normally I'm on the side of let the format adjust. see if people can beat it, give it a couple of months. But it kind of just feels to me like there's no way this card is still legal in a year. And it kind like I saw a lot of chat around like there's some big-ish modern tournaments coming up in the UK. See quite a lot of people saying like, not sure if I want to bother in the Nadu metagame, because it's so dominant. People will just feel like they're kind of punting away equity by not playing Nadu, but also people don't really want to buy into the deck because they think it's going to be banned.
Yeah.
Out of interest, what numbers is it putting up outside of the Pro Tour? Because the Pro Tour is a kind of closed meta. It's kind of the players are bringing decks to kind of fight against each other. So you will end up with more kind of like slightly more niche cases compared to just like a larger, wider format. Kind of like how's Nadu like doing out in the wild, like on like MitGo or at other tournaments?
So we have a small problem at the moment, my darling, is that we don't have deck lists for the last week because Magic Online's API has been down. But the 75k Open, which was won by a good friend of mine, Archdota, was playing Nadu. And I feel like he said that the Secret Lair Showdowns and the 75k Opens were just all Nadu, Nadu and Nadu adjacent decks. So it's being played a lot. I think James said it best, is the fact that it doesn't have bad matchups. Storm, bad matchups. It will have a bunch of bad matchups. Like all modern decks typically would have bad matchups. Whether that's Jeskai, Living End, Tron, Scam, the Boris Energy deck, which I quite like actually. I quite like that Boris Energy deck. Prowess, whatever. Like these all beat up on each other. Nadu just looks at all these decks as like sup. Like the worst thing is probably like Jeskai, but like you raft the skies and they go, okay, I've already,
they've got their value. Yeah,
they've got their value, and then you go raft the skies. You're like, okay, I'll go again.
Yeah,
like what do you want?
Yeah, no, it's tough. I guess we will see. Yeah, especially as it was so dominant in the Pro Tour. I guess we'll see what they've got lined up.
I'm much more willing to give decks a chance if it's in a spot like, remember the Pro Tour where Eldrazi was incredibly dominant, and that did turn out to need bans, but that was a spot where people weren't prepared for Eldrazi. It was kind of a breakout, not like a completely unknown deck, but people weren't preparing for the Eldrazi meta for that Pro Tour.
And there were different flavors of it as well, I guess.
I Vugin Eldrazi Mimic. Woo!
And in that spot, it's like absolutely, it's very interesting to see how the metagame plays out for a while as people adjust to that. This was a Pro Tour where people kind of knew Nadu was the best deck going in. People were pretty prepared, if you look at most of the deck lists, and it still crushed it,
No, fair.
I will say that the deck itself, one of the challenges you were saying about cost on it, it's still like $1,000 on Goldfish. Like, who wants to spend like a few £100 on a deck that's going to get banned from?
Yeah, it's oddly Nadu's quite cheap, but cards like Shuko are like
Shuko shot up.
Yeah.
The One Ring is not cheap. Urza Saga is still not cheap. Like Delighted Halfling is like shot up a bit. So the rest of the deck is like, the kind of quote unquote good cards are like expensive, but we shall see. I'm cautiously optimistic it's getting banned. The problem is when.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'd ban it like tomorrow, but I think if in a month it's dominating the challenges and everything, it's probably got to go, I think.
Well, you'll all be happy to know that within the next month, 2 sets are being released. So,
So that is true of all months.
That is true of all months.
But after Bloomborough or Bloomhaven, insert correct name there. After Bloomborough, there will be the 2 weeks after that's released. There will be the part where they can ban things that is meant for cards from that set. In theory, you could see them doing something there. So yeah, so modern players,
bad grief.
We're not.
Bad grief.
So we will talk legacy. I promise with you. I promise you, we'll talk legacy.
Sorry, I got excited about you said ban, and I got
modern
very
players
excited about.
Save the date for 2 weeks after Bloomborough comes out. that could be when it is. Right, so let's move on to our main topic of the day. Let's talk about Magiccon Amsterdam.
Yes.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty and kind of give you our thoughts, it is probably worth us just touching on, because for some people they might not have heard what one is or not had the opportunity to go to one. What is a Magiccon? So first of all, a Magiccon is basically a massive GP or massive event. Think the biggest gathering of Magic players you've ever seen, and then basically you're there. It's thousands of players. There's qualifying type events like PTQs, like you used to get with GPs, but they've also combined it with the idea of a convention. So there's panels, there's cosplayers. They do Game Nights Live, which is a massive production. They've also got the Pro Tour going on, which we touched on, which you can go and watch. There's traders there, there's activities, this kind of stuff. It's basically, they try to get as much in there as possible on top of obviously playing Magic. There's a whole big room for that, which we'll get onto. Also worth mentioning with this Amsterdam is that every day sold out. We were told that it was 2.5 times bigger than any previous Magiccon or any convention they've done. I'm not sure if that includes Vegas, because I know Vegas is meant to be massive, but from going to Barcelona last year, this definitely felt twice as big. Just in terms of hall size, it was massive. And they've been doing these for a while now. I think it's like this is the third year of Magiccons, I believe. The first year they were only in America. Last year we had one in Europe, and this was our second one in Europe. And I definitely felt like this was an improvement over last year, and they definitely learnt and taken things away and gradually improved what they are offering. So yeah, me and Sahar were fortunate enough to go to Magiccon Barcelona last year. But James, this was your first Magiccon. I kind of want to get your thoughts first. What was your first impression of Magiccon Amsterdam and your first experience of a Magiccon?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I think I, as a Magic player, am probably like not the target audience in a lot of ways. Because I'm not that into like mostly I want to be playing Magic. I'm not that into a lot of the convention-y side of it. It's like, cool, you're recording game nights. That's fun. I don't particularly care, you know? But I still had a great time. I would say, like, I probably wouldn't have gone if it wasn't a city I wanted to go to for a nice holiday, you know? If it were, instead of being in Amsterdam, it was in, like, actually, I'm not going to just name a city. That sounds boring on the internet. That doesn't sound like a high EV play.
I agree. I was thinking about this. Like if it was like in Edinburgh, and like I love Edinburgh, but I've also been there a couple of times. I can go there on the train. It's not something I'm going to go for a holiday for. In the summer months when things are busy, if it was like somewhere kind of like that, I might not. I'd be less inclined to go compared to somewhere cool like Amsterdam or somewhere cool like Barcelona last year. I think that is fair.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that would get me to be more likely to go was a bunch of these. So I think all of these now, they're doing these big like 75k open events, which I think like the top 8 get a PT invite.
Correct.
But they're also just, you know, great prize pool, kind of a GP, right? That feels like a GP. If that was limited, I would have been like way more up for going and doing all the days of con to go and play in that. This time it happened to be modern. I'm not that into modern. I don't mind playing it, but I'm certainly not going to go and buy a Nardu deck to play in it, you know? But yeah, I'd be way more up for going if it was one of them. I still had a great time, though. We did the Gavin Verhey mystery event. That was really fun. Saw a bunch of people. It was a great time. I probably wouldn't spend a bunch of money, go all the way to a city I wasn't that interested in just to do the Magic Con if there wasn't like a competitive Magic event I wanted to play in, you know?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think Magiccon does do different things, and I guess it is trying to cater to everyone. I guess they can only do so many 75k events, and if it doesn't get you, then that doesn't make sense. And also, kind of like that's kind of reflected because, like, to an extent, kind of you had a Sunday pass. You kind of went for the one day, and it was like the city break, and that's kind of like so. There was a group of us who all went over effectively for a prolonged city break with Sahar, you diving headfirst into the Magiccon. You were there every day. I was there 2 days. James, you were there one, and some of our friends were also only there for the one day. It kind of that is one thing about it, is that you can kind of adjust what you want based on the holiday, based on what you have around it. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is something Wizards are conscious of, and is probably why they chose to host it in a cool city like Amsterdam. Like, there are much cheaper places for them. They could have put this Magiccon, and I think it's a good decision to put it in places that people want to go to anyway.
I think there's a lot of other places they can make, they could put where it's cheaper for us as well, but we'll get on to costs, I think, towards the end, because Amsterdam is not a cheap place.
It's not, but it is a destination city.
It is.
And
the canals, it's beautiful this
the
time of year.
canales. I think one thing I'm realizing with the cities they're picking is that they are like hubs. They are easy to get to. In the case of Amsterdam,
yes,
big airports.
Easy to get around as well.
Yeah, and conventions halls. Like the RAI is massive. Like the RAI is basically the size of the Excel for our UK listeners. And I think that is a testament to finding somewhere that can accommodate these multi-thousand capacity events. And there's few places around Europe that can really do that. Because you can do like 1, maybe 2, 3,000 people, but like once you're getting into the tens, it's really like a handful of convention centers around Europe that can accommodate that. And I agree with James. I think, so Barcelona had the limited open. I think this time they went for modern. I was talking to the person who's like basically the events coordinator at dinner on the Thursday night. And it's like when they were deciding what Magiccon was, they wrote like on the whiteboard of like Magiccon is, and then they just wrote a load of like X, Y, Z things. And I'm like, okay, well, how can we accommodate those experiences? So what maybe for me and you, James, we would want, someone else is like, give me that in like spades. So it's a tough sell. Like I appreciate they're trying to do lots of things, but I do think I think they knocked it out the park this time. There's a few snags, and costs are definitely a discussion point to have, but I did my feedback and I was like 10 out of 10. No, some notes, but like I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah, for sure. That wasn't meant to say criticism of the event. It was more just like where it lands with me personally.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I thought the con side of it did work well, I think. Because I always thought of it in terms of, they used to try and do a bit of that stuff in GPs, right? And it was always a bit weak, right? It was a bit like half-assed, and that very much wasn't the case here. They went all out on that stuff. It all worked. It was all cool. And there just also seemed to be like a pretty big range of stuff available for different interests within Magic. Like I saw there was a like cube corner bit, which unfortunately being there for one day we didn't get to check out, but it was basically just a bunch of people brought their own cubes. There was a Discord channel.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
If we'd done a second day, I'd loved to go and play some cubes.
I've only found out about Cube Cobra. Sorry, shout out Cube Cobra, but Cube Corner on the second day. But I was like, I just saw them. I was like, what are you doing? Like, I just kind of walked around. I was like, are you cubing? They're like, yes. And I was like, oh, very nice. But that's the thing. Same with the Canadian Highlander meetup that happened on Sunday. They ended up going from like the creator area into free play because there was so many of them. Like a bunch of different formats could like pick themselves up and do things. So I felt like there was something for everyone.
No, definitely. I think that's kind of let's just actually go around some of the different things that was on offer. So let's start, I think, with constructed events. And this is kind of Sahar. This was kind of, I think, your bread and butter for the weekend. Kind of like you. So they have the 75k modern open. There were other ones as well. Sahar, do you want to talk about the constructed events that you played over the weekend?
I will do, but I'll kind of talk about some of the constructed events that I was aware of. So there's a 75k open, which is what me and James would probably call like our classic GP kind of vibe, 15 rounds, cut to day 2, play whatever. Then you had the Secret Lair Showdowns, which happened at the last Magiccon, where you're playing for like a high prize. Then you had cups. So each format had like a cup event, which was like the halfway house between a casual kind of like, vibes based, have fun, or something a bit more competitive like the 75Ks. But if you
were the cups at competitive REL, or was it a bit more
they
casual?
were at regular REL also. So it's like they call the way they branded it on the events website was challenging. So it was casual, challenging, and competitive. I don't know why Bunny Rabbit is that, but that's fine. But those were like €50, and the top 8 would get, I think it was like, they would get ticks for every win they had. So that was their incentive for playing. If they won, they got ticks for the prize war, which I thought was a nice little incentive, because I didn't really like the 3-round kind of like side event side. I feel like people wanted to have like 6-7 rounds of something that they could just kind of play for in like a longer period of events. Then the competitive events, so I played in the Legacy for Artwork event. So this was quite a small event because it was quite expensive.
It had high hopes, I think, is the way to say it. It had high hopes and a dream, and I don't think Sahar, your best place to talk about it, I think.
Well, so the Friday only had 40 had 4 players. Unsurprising, went undefeated in the Swiss, then got dispatched in the quarterfinals. But we also, for Legacy, there was 121 people playing the cup event, which was literally the tables opposite.
And it was at the same time, wasn't it?
So
which is very tricky.
That's really tricky. It's
so
like,
they kind of just stretched the Legacy player base a bit thin.
Exactly.
Yeah. And sorry, how much was the event that was the Legacy for Artwork that you were in?
€125, which is a lot.
And the artwork. So you did 2 of these. It was
yes.
You did the Friday one, I believe, was for Witch's Cottage.
Correct, and then one was Unexpected Discovery.
Very nice.
From the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. But the cup events are €50, so it was a lot more like, price point friendly.
It seems like doing one of them, or doing one for paintings on one day, seems like an idea, and not at the same time as a cheaper, more accessible, and also slightly more relaxed, because your one, the one for the painting, was competitive REL. Is that right?
Yeah, I played a comp role. And for me, that's kind of the way I like playing it. But
you are a gamer, Sahar.
I am indeed a gamer, Panda. I am indeed a gamer. But yeah, it was like we definitely noticed it. But then on the second day, we had about 34 for the artwork event for the second day, which I think, considering the price point and people that played Legacy the first day, a lot of people I felt who wanted to play the events were coming for the day to play the event. Certainly from the Legacy players we had, rather than play there for the whole weekend. Like there was really only like a handful, certainly for Legacy, of like 20-30 players who were playing all the events. And that's, certainly I was one of them. Shout out to a couple of others who were also like joining me on the kind of weekend escapade of Legacy events. But I felt like there was enough for everyone to be doing, competitive wise, and I feel like that option was available.
You could find your format. I'm assuming, we mentioned the modern one. I'm assuming there was was there a Pioneer Cup?
Yeah, there was a Pioneer Cup.
Okay.
There was a Standard Cup.
Vintage Cup?
No Vintage Cup.
No, no Vintage. Okay.
There were vintage players around though. I did see a couple who just had 2 vintage decks in their bag. I'm like, no, what are you doing? No, don't do that. But yeah, mainly this is the first time Legacy got anything more than like a 3-round side event, and I think it was a success. Okay. So I hope they do more of them in the future.
The cup sounds more successful. Yeah. No, that's good.
I'm happy playing 6-7 rounds for like some tickets. I don't mind. Just let me play 6-7 rounds of competitive Magic, please.
No, you brought home a collector booster box of Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
I love
it. I love it when you bring home the boosties.
Yes, I did girl maths my weekend, so we're fine.
We'll get on to the purchases. Don't you worry. But keeping it on the topic of boosties, on demand events. So this is something that most big conventions and big Magic events have had for a while. It's basically you don't pre-book, unlike constructed events or booked side events. You just show up. and you show up to a booth, you pay some money, and when there's 8 of you, it fires. James, you got in pretty early on the Sunday to fire off a draft. I know you, for time reasons, you weren't able to finish it, but how was the experience of drafting? Was it did you have to wait long to get the full pot of 8? Like, how was that for you?
Oh, they were firing so quickly; it was unbelievable. I was as I arrived, the previous pod had just got their eighth person. There was like a table where you had to sit down to wait for the right sort of MH3 draft, and there were like a variety with various different stakes. Literally before they left the table to go and do their draft, there was another 8 people waiting to draft.
Yeah.
Stood next to the table.
They're ready.
They were ticking over at a good rate, and were like pretty efficiently organized. I think they've been doing these for a while now. They know how to do them. They are good. I would very happily like go and just play on demand events for a day. I would have a great time. The cups actually sound kind of cool though, because it's like it feels like it would be kind of the same thing if I could do a draft cup, but there's like a little bit more structure, right? And you're like, because you can, if you go and 3-0 your 2 drafts, it's cool to have like, oh, I then won an extra thing for going 6-0 a day, But yeah, no, the on-demand events all worked really well. It does feel like you are paying a lot, like not for the because if you were to just go show up and do a bunch of on-demand events all day, because it's like obviously you're buying a bunch of tickets to enter the events, and then on top of that you're paying for entry. I think it would be kind of cool if they did a thing where you could buy like your entry ticket and a whole bunch of event tickets in one thing, and you got a bit of a discount for doing that. Or maybe similarly, if you're entering one of the pretty high stakes events like the 75k, if they did, your ticket like costs a little bit more, but comes with the entry for that day. It feels like kind of a feel. It feel bad to like I'm showing up to do this event and I also have to pay a bunch of money to get in the building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but,
like a draft, like effectively like a draft pass.
Yeah. And to be fair, there may be things like this that existed. I didn't look into it that much because I knew we were doing other stuff some of the day. But when I've looked at previous ones of these events, I've been like, oh, it would be cool if that existed.
I did give that as my feedback to the official Wizards. I think that having at least your badge with like one entry to on-demand
like a draft
draft
or something like that. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, that building was like dripping, or I was like overflowing with Outlaws of Thunder Junction booster packs. Like I think by the end, like the sellers were like buying a booster box for like 40-50 euros just because there was so many around. Like you could easily like I know MH3 is a premium product, but like you could easily give someone like just give people an Outlaws of Thunder Junction draft. Like what's 3 booster packs to Wizards when there's literally like pallets of the things out back? But yeah,
for sure. Like I think if you got the premium pass, it came with like, you go through a queue quicker and here's some boosters. Like I don't think many like you can just buy the boosters anytime, right? I think it would be cool if it came with a draft.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think the premium weekend pass, because one of the people we were with accidentally was given it when they were getting their badge on the Thursday. It just came with like a collector booster and a Modern Horizon and a mystery booster. That was the that is the anecdote that I was told. I have not done. I have not looked up. There must be something else you get with that. Maybe you might have got access to the show floor early, which is something we'll get onto in a little bit when we get onto kind of like the shop and stuff. But kind of keeping it just talking about side events, they do have some kind of like predetermined events, kind of like there's like a schedule and you can book things in advance. These do tend to actually sell out pretty quickly. So I think like it was like buying Glastonbury tickets. I'll be honest with you. There was like 6 of us all like, okay, this event has gone on sale. Let's all buy them because there's like flashback drafts, there's chaos drafts, there's like draft with creators, that kind of stuff. The one that that all of us did as a large group was the Gavin Verhey mystery event. These are probably my favorite events to do at Magiccon because they specifically exist for just that weekend. If you're not aware what they are, it's basically I think they kind of settled on the format of it's 60 card commander sealed, 1-on-1. You get like 6 booster packs plus 10 playtest cards that Gavin has made specifically for this event. They're only made for this event, and they are playtest cards. They are like the playtest sticker stuck on a Magic card. I'm aware that the judges have to spend quite a bit of time helping him stick them all on. But basically, you play 60 card commander. The change this time was that you could give any 1 or 2 color legend partner, but as long as the total wasn't more than 3 colors. So you couldn't have two color commanders to make 4 colors, but basically you could. It basically meant that everyone could have access to a 3 color commander, which worked pretty well because I think we got like 6 or 8 booster packs, something like that. I know there was
Murder of the Call of Mana, Ravnica Remastered, MH3, Outlaws of Bunker Junction were like the split, and then you got the cards. I think with the playtest cards, because they were a lot more European creators that were sort of referenced. So I think like Peasant Kenobi, Max Makes Magic, Christian Gregory from the Commander Advisory group, the CAG, like a bunch of people I knew I was like, this is this person. But also you had like Voxies, a bunch of the other creators who were also being referenced. So it was very cool to see like, I recognize this, but I recognize this is their card. So
the question is, what does powerful nothing the card do?
Discard your hand.
It's just an Oldod reprint, right?
It's just an Oldod, yeah.
What do you call it? I want something that gives us like a pack one, pick one. I want like booster tutor, something like that. Yeah, on a creature, something like that. That'd be sick. Give us a pack one, pick one.
No,
I want some horrible prison card. I think it's more on theme with the name. Fair. It's just gonna like you cast it and then nothing happens in the game for like 10 turns.
Nothing happens.
Yeah,
but powerfully.
Yeah. You get like an age counter. And when you hit a certain amount of age counters, you win the game because you're getting so powerful.
Exactly. That's
you
all
can't do anything. It's like epic, but you just don't do it.
Yeah. Perfect.
So my tactic for this one was definitely different to last year. So when we did this at Barcelona, I'll be honest with you, I tried building a good deck. I had like a Zeusa and a White Legend combined, and the deck was all very solid and very good. But this time I kind of was like, I want to play with these playtest cards. So I had the Cast Enchanted. If you can work out who these are, let me know while I'm saying them.
Okay.
So this is 2 and a Simic for a 4/4 legendary enchantment creature elemental. It has 3 and a blue, tap and sacrifice another creature. Search your library for up to 4 cards that don't share a value, power, toughness, or card type with each other. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand, then shuffle. So it's kind of got like a birthing poddy, fact or fiction-y kind of vibe to it. And it's also an enchantment. And I paired that with the Great Juggernaut. This is 3 and a red for a 5/3 legendary artifact creature Juggernaut. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Great Juggernaut unless you discard a card. Whenever it attacks, shuffle your library and exile the top card of your library. You may play that card without paying its mana cost this turn. I think this is actually... So this one I think is actually a Kai Buddha card because it's...
Yeah, the Great Juggernaut!
It references, well, obviously Juggernaut, but also Mastercore and Temporal Aperture, which I believe he won a...
World Championships with.
Yeah, I had this... I had the gold-boarded version of this deck as a kid, and it's one of the reasons why I own like 8 Thran Dynamos. Yeah, my deck was Teamer Beef. After game 1, I realized I should just be playing all of my 4 and 5 drops and cut a lot of my early do-nothing creatures. And yeah, my deck was pretty solid. I mainly picked these colors because it meant I was playing as many of these uncards as possible, or these playtest cards as possible. And that's kind of the vibe of it. A couple of other these cards that kind of stuck out to me that they made for the event. Famous Museum, 3 generic for an artifact. Whenever a creature you control dies, put an art counter on Famous Museum. Tap and add a colorless, plus an additional colorless for each art counter on Famous Museum. That is referencing the Van Gogh Museum, which we actually went to the day before. And then, James, who was your commander? What did you end up building?
So I kind of just built with my commanders the busted mythic row I opened.
Reasonable. Yep.
Because it was the Disa that makes the Tarmogoyfs, and I like making Tarmogoyfs. And mostly my deck was play literally any creature, then play Disa and make lots of Tarmogoyfs. It was very effective until I played against Dan when he gave his Kai Buddha Juggernaut commander +2/+2 and flying, and I died to commander damage. But yeah, no, Disa was cool. I had some nice playtest cards in the deck. Had Ash something, which is a reference to a content creator, I believe, which makes when you attack, you make one of a variety of cards as a token that has Ash in the name. I didn't even look up what they all did. I never got to attack with it, but I thought the idea was sweet. The one really cool playtest card I opened, I couldn't quite find a way to play because I didn't open any other good blue cards, but it was a legend where before the game you can propose an amendment to the rules of Magic. If your opponent accepts, then you play with that amendment as for the entire game, and if not, you get to scry 2 in your upkeep. That card's kind of sick.
Yeah. So I think that's Tim Willoughby's card. He's on the Commander Advisor. It's I believe the rule text or the flavor text for the rule is Rule 0. Yeah. The rule I was going to propose was all spells have Storm. Go from there. So I in my first round, someone next to me played that as their commander, and I think they did all lands tapped for 2 mana.
Good.
Yeah, the person went for it in game 1. Went for it, and that seemed pretty solid, I think. But yeah, you could definitely do all spells have Dredge 8. What can we do? It's too much. Too many choices.
Here is my 80 card deck.
Mine would have been whenever you cast a spell, deal 3 damage. Just like everything's like
players start on 10
for the shortest time possible.
Everyone just dies as quickly as possible.
Sahar, I do want to hear from you because there was one of your games that was kind of ridiculous. One of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever seen in any game of Magic. Do you want to read your commander and then go into how it?
My commander was the egotistical Velociraptor, who is I don't know the content creator, but I did tag them. I found out who it was afterwards. I tagged them. So this is 2 and Esper for a 6/6. So 5 mana 6/6. I'm sold. Dinosaur Boxer. Which is Grumpy Coplay. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you may choose another Magic player not currently in a game of Magic and ask them to take over your game until the end of your next turn. If they agree, shuffle your hand into your library, draw 4, and gain 4 life. You can't give them advice, but witty banter is encouraged. Now, I played against my friend Dennis Offerman. Shout out, Dennis, for being an absolute sport, because this game took, I want to say, over an hour.
That man is a saint for putting up with your nonsense.
So I got friend of the channel, Eco Baronin, to play, and I've got a picture of Andreas literally mind melting as he tried to figure out what happens. For
context, he had been playing in the Pro Tour the day before and was about to. Was he about to leave as well on the Sunday?
I was basically saying goodbye to him.
He thought he was.
Like, no, you're the commander now.
I was just like, hey, lovely to see you. I missed like my land drop. I was like, oh, can you just hold on a second? I hit 5 mana, cast a spell. I was like, sit down. He was like, what? I'm like, read the card. And he's like, okay. And I have a picture of him just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. The prior game, this was game 2. The prior game, James, I found James, and I was playing against my friend Vivian. But Vivian had a commander that meant that she could, it basically could companion the sword, shield, and hand of Kuldra, and then she could put it together. And then she had a 9/9 that we couldn't beat. And James said, "You're dead, Sahar," and I was like, "Yes." But game 2, I found Andreas. Then I found Vivian from my first game. And then I found my friend Peter Vanderham. And all three of these players played in this game against Dennis. And
4 players total played against Dennis.
4 players. I had a very funny moment, actually, where I thought I was actually going to kill Dennis, where I had one of the uncards was X blue, make X clues, and then make a XX creature equals the number of clues you made. So I went X equals 8, made an 8/8, and then I drew this. It was like a 6 mana card from, I want to say, Outlaws. Whenever it enters the battlefield, investigate. Whenever you sack a clue, each opponent gets 2 poison counters. And I just played this go, looked at Dennis. I was like, Dennis, if I get a turn, you're dead. Because I got like 12 mana. And then he top decks the murder, and then I just laugh. I just like burst out laughing because I'm like, of course you did. And then finally I grind him down and then just attack with like a load of creatures, and he's like, yeah, you got me. But what a good sport. That game was like an hour.
You need to buy him a beer at some point, Sahar.
I did. I bought him many beers.
Good.
But yeah, that was genuinely the highlight of the weekend, was just me just laughing at just the silliness that came to pass. Like, don't get me wrong, me playing competitively was a lot of fun, but just that moment of just like seeing that all unfold, incredible.
Me and James were sat next to you, and kind of every time I looked up, there's a different person sitting in the chair.
Yes,
like, were you just standing behind them, laughing,
just cackling, just looking at Dennis, going, "I'm so sorry, my darling."
But yeah,
well, there's a card that I didn't get to play, and I wish I got a good play. So I had one which was the Master of Cuisine, and I didn't get to play this but I wanted to. Whenever this creature attacks, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice a food, choose one. So our creature gains haste and trample. Pasta, scry 1, and pizza, tap target creature. So this is Mengucci. Mengucci cuisine. I also had Ash Lizard, but I also got Ash Lizard to sign mine. I got Pleasant Taxer, which actually I think could be a card, which is 1 mana. It's 1 and a white 2/2, so Death and Taxes stats. As it enters the battlefield, choose casting creature spells, casting non-creature spells, searching libraries, drawing a card beyond the first each turn, or activating abilities other than mana abilities. Doing the chosen action costs players 1 more. So it's like, I was like, yeah, like, I think I just do activating abilities other than mana abilities. I think that's the one I'd want. I also got Vince to sign that.
But the Gavin Verhey event I think was a ton of fun. I think we'd all recommend it. Yes, just kind of cracking on in terms of other things that we did and that you can do at a Magiccon. Obviously, there's also a lot of traders. If you have cards to get rid of, or there's something big you're looking for, you can definitely do it there. I would definitely say the Friday, most of the traders were like too deep a lot of the time. I think that was very much people trying to get all their trades done as early as possible. I did most of mine in the Sunday. I managed to trade effectively half of an old legacy deck I haven't played in ages for some dual lands, a Wheel of Fortune, and a Survival of the Fittest, which we love. That was pretty hot. Wifey, you mentioned the girl mass. What did you buy?
I got myself a tropical island. Yeah, I bought myself a trop because I was like, you know what? I've played really well this weekend. I went top 8 and I went 8th and 10th in both my events. I'm gonna treat myself. So I bought myself a tropical island.
You should treat yourself. I know we had some friends who basically just bought like a deck box full of cards, and basically like over the course of a day were able to trade them in. I think like a friend of ours, he had a lot of kind of like 5 and 10 quid cards and traded up to a mana crypt, and that's one of the cool things you can do at these conventions. Just get that done. And then obviously next up we have meet and greets. So there's a ton of different ways you can meet creators. Like they're just walking around for one. Some of the bigger ones have specific times where you can queue up and you can get stuff signed. You can meet them. There was also a big creator corner where people were doing content. It is free for people to just go in and just say hi and just wander around, that kind of stuff. Before we get to the nice part of this, Jay, I do want to touch on something that happened to James. James, you got apparently big timed by some random American content creator, and it's really funny. But would you mind just regaling us with that one?
I don't want to
No, we don't have to give names.
Yeah.
Also, that part of the story is we don't know the names. But yeah, I think.
Yeah, listen, I'm sure. I think this was probably meant better than it came across to me. But I kind of sat down and they were like, "Oh, do you watch much Magic content?" And I was like, "Yeah, I watch some Magic content." "Oh, do you know the content creators?" I was like, "Oh, sorry, no." So I gestured to his friends, and then he said, the exact words were, "If you watch the Magic content, you know who we are," which I just found was quite a lot. That's quite a lot.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
I did see some Magic content creators who I do know who they are, which was a lot of fun. Not so much of a Magic con, actually. I mean, I saw them wandering around for this, but had a nice chat with Cameron at the after party, which we'll maybe discuss later.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I know as well that rather awesomely, Sahar, you got to play Legacy with Ben Wheeler. How was that?
Yeah. So me and Wheeler had been chatting on Twitter. He had followed me a while ago, and on an episode of the PPR, him and Zebex and Abe Beckham were kind of just saying that they liked Legacy. And I was watching the PPR and I was like, hang on a minute. They just said the magic word. So I message going you ever want to chat shop? I got you. And so we've been chatting a little bit. And I was like, oh, you're coming to Amsterdam. We'd love to meet you, yada, blah, blah, blah. He was doing a sort of play Canadian Highlander thing at the Ultra Pro stand. And I got there a bit late. So I was like, I just kind of, before my Saturday event was about to start, I was like, hey, they were like, oh, Wheeler, if I see you, amazing. If not, we'll catch up. And we'd kind of been texting a little bit on Twitter. And I sort of said, hey, are you around to play Legacy? And he was like, I am actually. And I was like, oh, okay. So one of the last things I did before the Sunday rounded off is I basically was in the free play area, jammed Legacy for about an hour. Wheeler absolutely annihilated me. I didn't care because I saw a man go back on the bike so fast. It was incredible. I never seen a person get on the bike that fast. That boy was casting ponders, dazes, and brainstorms like it was going out of fashion. And I got absolutely crushed, but I saw someone fall in love with a format once again. And I think his current stance is as soon as they ban Grief, he's back. And I was like, you coming to Eternal Weekend, Wheeler? He was like, maybe. I was like, what if I told you can borrow Delver? He's like, wow, now you're talking. I'm like, it's there for you if you want it. Because obviously jamming Legacy is a fun passion project of mine, and getting more people to play the format is incredible. So yeah, that was probably that, and meeting Shivam in terms of creators was definitely my highlight. Shivam, I've been on Casual Magic before, and to meet someone who's as passionate about Magic as I am is pretty awesome. And then some of the other creators who I know from the Birds of N2G collective I'm in, and a few other things, just see them in person was also really nice. So I got to meet some creators, but I never felt like I was oh, look at me, I'm Sahar Mirhadi, or this kind of stuff. But I had people come up to me and say they watch my content, and my energy and enthusiasm is very infectious.
No, definitely. Well, talking of the content, Sahar, you were also on site. You had a panel in one of the guest rooms.
It did.
Do you want to touch on that? Also, there will be a link to the recording down in the show notes. But yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about your panel?
Yes, I will, Daniel. Thank you. So when the Magiccon sort of hype train had started, there was a thing about doing these community panels, and I had seen Hobbs Q, who runs the Goblin Law podcast and is heading up the Better Days MTG initiative, which is about magic and mental health, and I was like, I want to do something like that. My background is someone who is interested in magic and mental health. So I put in an application to do it, and I found, again, I'm shouting out Andreas again, Andreas Peterson, Emma Partlow, and then Daniel Kane, to kind of discuss magic from sort of competitive perspective, casual perspective, and also content creator perspective in terms of this sort of balancing the act we all have to do with, like, our hobby becoming our job or our job becoming our hobby and stuff like that. And I think it went really well. The recording, we just did the final bits on the recording, so that should be online, as I said in the show notes below. So free to watch it. I'm very proud of it. They made it very easy for me. And I feel like the questions we got were really nice, and I feel like everyone walked away from that experience feeling a little bit better, which is all I really want.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. Me and James were both in attendance, and yeah, it was really well hosted. A wonderful MC, but also, very thoughtful and a lot of things to kind of like really get people thinking about their mental health and ways to help players get the most out of Magic from a positive point of view. So yeah. Would highly recommend you check out the recording for that if you weren't able to make it there.
Yeah, for sure. The greatest accolade I can give is that I dropped halfway through an MH3, playing my games in an MH3 draft to go to it, and I did not regret that decision. And that's quite a lot for me, especially because my deck was absolutely cracked.
I know, I heard.
Let's touch on merch a little bit. So the merch of the con was very... it was very cool. I think the main downside is some of the queues were obscene. I think the average... I think at peak time, the queue was about 3 hours for merch. It did look like the secret tech was you could pre-order it and show up at a set time and pick it up. That seemed like a very short queue. I think in the future, if you were going to do it, that would be my hot ticket. Basically, my recommendation: just buy it ahead of time and show up at a given time. Rather, like if you want a queue, cool. But there were some cool things. Like the orange bomber jacket was quite vibey. I was able to get the it's a Ajax shirt, but Magiccon themed. That was pretty cool. And then obviously there's playmats and t-shirts and all the kind of stuff that you would expect from a event convention. We'll kind of get on to how we got those a little bit later on. But one thing I also wanted to touch on, which something we all went to, was the Friday was the after party. So this was a emo night.
Yes,
I want to say. So this was in a kind of like a gig venue somewhere in southern Amsterdam, kind of like near enough to the convention center. What were all your takes on this? I do kind of want to start with the immediate thing that I think annoyed a lot of people, and I think they curtailed it pretty quickly. They were initially charging you £4 to go to the toilet.
So I found out there were secret toilets downstairs that were free.
Well, no, the ones upstairs as well. So they started off, you had to pay them. Also, worth pointing out, the after party was a ticketed event. It was €50 to go to it in the first place. Then on top of that, they were trying to charge you €4 to go to the toilet. The vibe I got is that happened for about an hour, and then someone said something to a Wizards employee, and then they quickly removed the people who were trying to charge you for the toilet. Because I didn't end up paying for the toilet. The first time I just kind of like, when I did the shimmy of, basically they gave you a stamp. So I did the shimmy of flicking my hand over as if I had a stamp, but then just walked through. But I do not like, that was the main negative of that party. And I do think as well, that was the venue, not actually Wizards. So hopefully that was just a bit of miscommunication from the venue side on that. But you guys, what did you think of it?
It was, I wouldn't say it was strictly emo music. There was a lot of pop punk, there's a lot of all of that stuff. But no, I thought it was good. I had a great time. The music was, you can't cater to all people's tastes. That's fine. But they nailed it with some bits. I thought they ended kind of weak though, on the music front.
Yeah, well, it's weird. They played Killing in the Name of and like Mr. Brightside within like the first hour.
Killing in the Name is such a strong finishing song. You can't be using that.
That is the end song.
This is unacceptable.
I think so. My main critique, I think it was an amazing event. I had an amazing time, and I felt like it was definitely good. But the sticking point, and I think its attendance numbers showed, is that creators had to pay originally, and then they backtracked that, and then people could get it for free. So that meant that the amount of people who were in the building was a little bit less. I also think it being on Friday rather than Saturday is actually a point against it, because at Barcelona, when we had the beach the party on the Saturday, you had a bunch of pros who obviously weren't playing in the next day who just attended, and so there'd be a lot more people. But because it was on the Friday, people are still playing.
There were bigger events, like the big modern thing, I think, was on the Saturday. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So you just had a load of people who were playing competitively, not doing it. And I think the fact that whilst it was a success, I feel that creators probably who were attending should have just got free passes, because that gets people in the room. And then more, I don't want to say more promotional stuff for it, but I do feel that more people should have attended. But then I don't know how you cater for that, whether that's
There was a lot of signs around for it. I had a great time. I would say it was €50 for effectively like a club night. You got one drinks token. So there was one room which had music, one room had karaoke. I think so we didn't spend too much time in the karaoke room. Like, there are videos of like Gavin getting up and doing karaoke and stuff like that. To see some creators do it would have been quite cool. But unlike last year, where it kind of like it was a big open space and kind of like people could be at the back and it'd be a bit quieter, this felt much more like there was like two very loud rooms and then like a hallway.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people just hanging out and talking in the hallway. And kind of like, actually, that's where you end up with most of the content creators from like the States and stuff. And there was a lot more kind of people just hanging in the hallway. And like, it meant that we could go and talk to them, kind of like what's one of your best and amazing features is that you can work a room like I've never seen anyone. And like, through just vicariously being like, oh, hey, wifey, I got to talk to like Kathleen and Graham from Learning Ready Run. Kind of like James mentioned, kind of like, we all had a really nice chat with Cameron. I was just talking Warhammer lore with him for like 10 minutes. And I was like, that was awesome. Those kind of interactions are things you can have because like it's slightly a more human level at kind of like an after party type thing. Kind of like we spoke to Kathleen about music. We spoke to Cameron about Warhammer, that kind of stuff. It was less kind of like, it was less magic based, if that makes sense, and kind of like those kind of interactions I liked a bit more.
Yeah, it's a much nicer environment to chat to those people than like wandering up to them annoyingly in a convention center. If you're
trying to go for like a Wii or something like that, or they're trying to like go between events. Yeah, I do get it.
Yeah, don't be
there
that
was lots
guy.
of people over the weekend that would pick those people, but that's fine. I think that you definitely could have made it cheaper and put it on a different day, and it would have been double the success it was. But with it as it was, I think I had more fun at this one compared to the last one.
I got messier this one than the last one. I'll tell you that much. We got home at like 3 in the morning or something like that, and we did. I think we're kind of coming a bit towards the end now. I think the general consensus is that Magiccon was good, like especially kind of like improvements from last year. I think things just like the venue was better. Stuff like simple things like aircon being turned on. Love that. Absolutely love that.
I'm sorry, that is not an achievement, though, if you're hosting a convention.
Barcelona was absolutely boiling.
Jesus, yeah. Barcelona was warm, James, warm. I do think it is important to touch on because basically value for money for the convention. What do we think about it and what could we change? So kind of like, so all cards on table. Sahar was fortunate enough to get the creator pass, and my weekend ticket was her +1 for being a creator. So in terms of tickets, I was fortunate enough to not have to pay for a ticket. So having said that, obviously Amsterdam is one of the most expensive cities in Europe. Flights weren't too bad, but accommodation, dear God, was a killer. Also, events-wise, worth pointing out, so I think last year the Gavin Verhey event was like 40 to 50 euros. This year it was between 70 and 80, and that is a big upticking. And I don't think, like, from a pack point of view, it didn't go up in value. I think there was one collector booster this year, but last year was like 3 Lord of the Rings and 3 Commander Masters, so kind of like the overall pack value is probably what works out in the wash to be about the same. Maybe a bit more. I don't know how much collector boosters for Modern Horizons 3 are selling for, but like a solid 20-30 euro uptick in cost. I felt that was definitely something that's, like, when I saw it, as like that was definitely more. In terms of value for money, effectively what I had was a weekend badge, and the regular pricing for that, depending on when you bought it, was between 90 and 95 euros. Hand on heart, I don't know if I would pay that for a weekend badge. 100 euros for a weekend badge is expensive. James, do you want to talk about so you were on a single day badge, which was between 35 and 40 euros. But again, like these badges are just to get you in the door. There's nothing else with that. And like, obviously, there's all the things we mentioned. There's the option to buy merch. There's the option to do trading. There's the like effectively it's the panels and the meet and greets. Those are kind of like the free things that you can do. And like some of the traders were doing like spin the wheel things to win stuff. But effectively, it's the ability to go in and do more things. Like all of, like as you mentioned, all of your playing Magic. For prizes anyway, you have to pay for. There was a ton of free space, so you could go in and just play Commander. That's all fine, but in theory, you could do that at a pub somewhere as well. So these are things to consider. I'm trying to kind of give an overview of the whole thing. But James, like from a 40, like for a single day pass, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I was kind of okay with it, because it's like, we're already going on holiday to Amsterdam. It's not going to be a cheap week. This is this is not a big part of that expense, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a nice trip to go on. You will have fun if you go. If you're of the mindset of like, I want good EV and to go and enter Magic tournaments, I think this is probably not the way to do it. Even if you're looking at entering that 75K, it's a lot of money once you've paid for the event ticket and the entry fee for the day. But yeah, I think, as with all these things, it's a question of priorities. If it's if you're okay with that, with the expenditure of the trip, then it's probably, that day ticket isn't going to break the bank. But if you're about, trying to get good EV out of your Magic tournaments, this probably isn't for you.
Yeah, and I think, I agree with that. And I think where I'm coming from is kind of like, for me, like when I'm going to these big events, part of it is the city break around it as well, and kind of like when eyeing it up, it's kind of like, I think if I hadn't have got the free ticket, and I know I'm very lucky to have gotten the free weekend badge, if I hadn't have got that, I probably would have just done the day as well, similarly to you and the other people we went with. But that's us. Like plenty of people. Like again, all the week, like every badge sold out. So there's definitely enough demand for this. It's just basically working out what we're speaking. Like for some people, they want to go to these places and just do but basically the convention is their holiday. That's what they're doing. They're not as fussed around the city around it. They're going for the convention, and for them, the weekend badge probably makes sense. But for me, kind of at this point in life, I like faffing around by a canal, eating Bitterball and having a beer, and then playing a bit of Magic. But Sahar, let's touch on you now, because you were actually, your weekend was kind of turned upside down a little bit, and in a very good way, I would say.
Yes.
Because you were accepted as part of the New Perspectives program. Do you want to touch on that?
I was. So here's me, applied for the creator program, got it. Amazing. I was like, we'll have a nice time with my friends. Get to go and play some Magic Gathering. But I had seen last year the New Perspectives program for Magiccon Barcelona, and it was initially region dependent. So the US Magiccons, people from the US, North America could do it, people from Europe could do it. So I was like, for Barcelona, I was like, well, I've already got a pass, I don't need to do it. So this year I was like, you know what, sod it. Let me apply. And what it is the diversity inclusion, the equality, diversity, and inclusion team basically have a program where they will award 10 recipients effectively an opportunity to go to Magiccon. So they'll give you all bells and whistles, you get a stipend to attend, you get a bunch of stuff as part of that experience. And I was very fortunate to be one of 10 people to do it. So I had a lovely dinner with my recipients on the Thursday night. Shout out to Samir Joseph, who was our person on the ground who was basically helping make sure that it all ran smoothly. I probably, if I was somebody who had got this thing and it was like my first time really getting to see someone outside of my community, I think a lot of people kind of just stayed in that bubble, whereas I kind of knew a lot of people, so I was kind of like milling around. But it was amazing to meet other people. And yes, I have done what I think I've done quite a lot to help grow the community as it stands. But we met people who were, helping teach people English through magic, and people, doing a bunch of different work that was like absolutely incredible through magic. And then here's me. Like, I mean, I've done a lot.
No, I'll be honest. I read your application. You 100% deserved it. So do not put yourself down.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Then I met other people.
You 100% deserved it.
Yeah. But then I met others who have just done absolute amazing work from across the globe. Like, we had Americans, Canadians, people from Brazil, people from Israel, mishmash of everybody, Spain, UK. It was great, and I think it's really worth it. I got so in addition, I also got the Black Lotus Pass with all the bells and whistles that gives. Would I buy a Black Lotus Pass myself? Absolutely not, because it's 800 euros, and I don't think I would do that. Did I probably get 800 euros worth of stuff out of it? Did we decide?
I think worth mentioning that kind of if you're doing the Black Lotus thing, there are like events which kind of effectively give you more packs and that kind of stuff. From a raw product point of view, I don't think you kind of maxed EV'd there, but that's because you were kind of doing stuff basically. You were
I had heard from people who had just basically sat in a Black Lotus lounge most of the weekend drafting MH3 until they ran out of product. That was a thing you could do. But I was there to be around people. Yes, if I wanted the max EV, then yes, I would have 100% just taken that opportunity. But I also got some amazing merch. I got this nice little bottle. Very nice.
It's an audio podcast.
Sorry,
for the listeners, Sahar is holding up a lovely-looking black bottle with some white artwork on it.
It's a black lotus. It's meant to be a lotus on it.
It's very nice. It is very nice.
It's very nice. I got a nice fancy bag. I got a load of product. I got so much product. And I got like 110 euros of on-demand vouchers, which thank you, James. I helped brother out, and I was like, James, you want some on-demand vouchers? He's like, hell yeah.
Did not need to be asked twice.
No. He was like, I'm ready. I was like, I got you. Don't worry.
So I was waiting by the door to collect my on-demand vouchers.
But yeah, I definitely feel that the Black Lotus Pass did get me a lot though. And I felt like I could kind of go wherever I wanted and sort of do whatever I want. Best example of this, we talked about merch earlier. I didn't realize when we went on the Friday that I had my own queue. I just rocked up past everybody else.
Yeah,
and was like,
that's how your boy got the Ajax shirt.
Having my own queue, James, was absolutely incredible. Because I literally walked up and I was like, am I meant to be here? And I showed her my badge. And she was like, yeah, wait 2 minutes, you'll have somebody. And I just saw people's faces seething at me. And I was like...
Again, you can if you go to Magiccon, pre-book your merch. Is if there's one takeaway from this whole podcast, pre-book your merch. Skip a 3-hour queue. Don't queue. Or listen to this episode while queuing for the merch next time.
Yeah.
There you go.
I had people waiting in line for 3 hours. Absolutely not. But yeah, I had a great time.
Each to their own. People can spend their time how they want. Like, the thing I definitely noticed is that time felt kind of short. Like, there was a lot of stuff to do, and kind of we are kind of coming to an end of it now. But kind of it definitely felt kind of it was kind of tricky to fit everything you wanted to in one day. Like doing,
there's never enough time. Like
doing trading, playing in an event, especially if it's like 4 or 5 rounds, that kind of thing. If you want to see a panel, that kind of stuff, it could be tricky. I wouldn't even mention that there were artists there. You could queue to get your
card signed,
that kind of stuff. if you have seen anything at a Magic event in the past, they have it here and more. I think kind of I just want to kind of I kind of want to wrap it up a little bit with if there was a Magiccon coming to a place near you, so maybe not same city, but you had to travel to it. Would you recommend someone to go to a Magiccon? James, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, I definitely would, as if what they want out of it is a cool weekend to meet a bunch of Magic people and catch up with maybe old Magic people who from across Europe or the States or wherever you are, who you don't get to see that much. It's a great way to do that. There's a bunch of stuff on. You can go for a whole weekend and kind of do different stuff all the time. I think we certainly didn't scratch the surface of it. It isn't like a GP trip, I would say, which I think is kind of what people want it to be in some ways. I could see going and just doing the same 12K. I would probably have done it if it was limited, as I said, but I think it's quite a different vibe from that because it is much more orientated towards stuff other than a big Magic tournament. But I think that's fine, and I think it works well as an event.
No, so I think it's kind of like they're trying to kind of cover all. So a GP was as good as you could get at the time, I think, for getting a large amount of competitive players into one place. That's the thing it was doing. Magicons are trying to do as many things as possible, and it does kind of show with the attendance that kind of they are being successful, kind of at least applying. Maybe it's not perfect for everyone individually, but it kind of covers enough bases for enough people that it appeals. Like I do think Magicons appeal to a wider range of people. But kind of, Sahar, how about yourself? Would you recommend a Magicon to someone?
110%. I'll tell you why. What James said about meeting people across the globe in one place, I cannot express how special that is. Yes, is it expensive? Yes, it is. And especially in a city like Amsterdam, which is already an expensive city, I will say to that. But if that is like the 1 or 2 events that you do a year, that is your like destination, like gateway destination event, 100% worth it. Do I think that they could probably get a bit more creative in the way they do their badges and their passes and the event entry? Of course. Is the cost of events increased since COVID and the pandemic? Yes, it has. Like, I think there is a tension as well about like the cost of entry versus the cost of how much it is to run these events. Like, this is the biggest Magiccon they ever had. I'm not surprised that stuff was a little more expensive because Amsterdam is such a expensive city. I think if you'd gone to somewhere that was a cheaper destination, like it might be cheaper, but you also like, is that where you want it to be? I think that anywhere they go in Europe has to be a bit of a destination city. So whether that's Paris or somewhere, Copenhagen or even London.
London, pitch London.
The challenge of London
is the XL kind of sucks.
Well,
it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's only 2 stops from our house, so I'm kind of.
It is only 2 stops from our
house.
Well, the challenge of London as well is that there is, because of the Brexit, there's challenges getting into the country. It's just there's like a lot more hoops they have to jump through, and it's actually more expensive than it is in mainland Europe. So I think that it's probably something that's been on the docket for going to the United Kingdom, but we'll have to see. But I think if it is the one event you do a year, 100% worth it. I think even if I know a bunch of people who said that, yes, it is really expensive, and that is something that they have to think about moving forward. And that is a genuine consideration. I think they can definitely get more creative with the way they do passes and badges, whether they do something akin to a draft pass or a commander pass, as they've done at Command Fest, for example, and like previous GPs. I think they could probably try and incorporate that into the badge entry, whether it's like, you have entry plus like 2 drafts or entry plus X amount of like, command zone games or whatever it may be, like, or you have like a constructed pass. Like, that could be a nice way of doing it, which is like, reduce entry to the events, plus you get into the door.
Yeah, you pick a pass and you get a percentage off or something like that.
Exactly. Like that would be perfect. Like that. I think that is one way they can definitely do it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I basically echo what the two of you said. I think the main thing is like when it comes to me recommending a Magiccon, I would despite what I said about me personally not probably buying a 3-day pass, that is what works for me. I would 100%. If there was a Magiccon in a city that I thought was cool, I mean, we did it for Amsterdam, we did it for Barcelona, we effectively arranged a holiday around it. I would probably do the same thing. Basically, everyone's price point, everyone's budgets, everyone's monetary situation is unique and entirely their own business. Basically, if you look at the cost of a Magiccon and you think it's doable for you, then and you want to go, I would highly recommend you go. That would be my main takeaway from this. I'm actually worried I've come across a bit negative about it, but yeah, I had an awesome time. I would highly recommend Magiccon. I thought I had a great weekend. Part of that was the fact that it was in Amsterdam and I was with a group of friends. That was awesome. Like for me, my weekend was an awesome weekend that had a Magiccon in it, if that makes sense, rather than
which is the way it probably should be.
Well, again, everyone like the point is we're all adults. We can get we can do what we want. Like part of the things about one of the things that came up on your panel, Sahar, was like the fear of missing out. Like, I don't think people should overstretch themselves to kind of come to these events and feel like you have to be involved. But if you can do it comfortably, then yeah, I would recommend it.
Have fun you want to have.
Exactly. Marvelous. All right, I think that's where we're gonna do it for today. Sahar, thank you very much for joining us today. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sahar Mirhadi on all social media platforms, and the Legacy Gambit on YouTube and Twitter.
Marvelous. I love that. James, pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
Yeah, always good.
And it just leaves me to thank you all very much for listening. Do make sure to follow the podcast, give us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Tell a friend, and let us know on Twitter. I promise you, at some point, me and James will post there. You can find us on Powerful MTG. At some point, we'll post something. Let us know if you've been to a Magiccon or if you think of going to one in the future. We'd love to hear from you. Any feedback is always appreciated. But until next time, it's goodbye from Sahar, goodbye from James, and it's goodbye from me. We'll see you all soon. Goodbye.